All right, looks like we are live today. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone who's joined us today. I can see people rolling in. Super excited for this LinkedIn Live. First of its kind for me. I've not done one in personal context, let alone be in a professional context. So I'm excited for how this goes. It is going to be a new motion for me. So, we'll see how it goes. But on top of the LinkedIn Live excitement, I'm also super excited today to talk about reInvent, which just happened a couple of weeks ago. And we felt like we really wanted to take this time to get a very high level thought leaders into onto a stage and really do a debrief of sorts, because this year's reInvent was very good. It had information packed, all over the 3 4 5 days that we were there, and it was really difficult for anyone really to keep a track of all the things that happened. Some of the announcements that happened were followed up with blogs, but there's so much content and so much information that was out there that we felt like it'll be a good event for us to do, and educate the community widely as well. And the second reason that I'm excited about is I'm joined by two of my best friends, Michael and Nadav, on the stage today. I'm going to hand it over to them for the introduction, but not that they need an introduction. Michael, of course, has been a veteran in the space. He's worked at Lacework, did amazing things. Then he's now at Astronomer. He's also the leader at Caddyshack, which is one of the communities that we really enjoy interacting with. And of course, we also have Nadav, who's worked at Wiz. He has his own community that is growing and thriving as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Michael first for introductions and then to Nadav. Michael, welcome, and over to you for your intro.
Michael Musselman, lead kind of partnerships at a data orchestration company called Astronomer. Spent 5 years at Lacework and cloud security before that. Nadav and I were frenemies at that time, but now we're full friends. But we've talked much over the years, and then me and a couple friends started the largest AWS user community group called Caddyshack, and so all of that is kind of how I've kind of got here over the years, but excited to join the conversation. And yeah, same. I thought reInvent was just really cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Nadav, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jonal, Clazar, Michael, for having me. It's exciting. I'm always happy to be joined by you guys. Great discussion so far, so hopefully this one will be as well. My name is Nadav. I'm working at Wiz for the past 3 years and working in the partnership ecosystem for the past 5 years. Currently, I'm doing a role of product partnership, so I've been switching a little bit from the traditional, not traditional because it's still the main core, but the co-selling, marketplace, revenue-driven type of partnerships to doing more co-build and build with partnerships, especially with the cloud providers. So I'm also happy to talk about this and happy to help summarize reInvent for everyone here. So thank you.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so with that, I'm going to jump straight into it because A, this is LinkedIn Live, so it's supposed to be like lightweight and fast. And second, because I'm just excited about all the things that you folks heard. I have a list of things that I recorded when I went to reInvent, and I'll get to that as well. But Michael, I want to go to you first. Out of all the things that you heard at reInvent, what's that one thing that got you the most excited?
The thing I've been waiting for the most was the buy with AWS, buy with Marketplace. Like, I think for all of us that have been playing around with this for a long time, um, like you still have to get your product listed, you transact there on private offers, but there's certain flows maybe in your product or your PLG motion, or there's things where you just wanted to extend it off the page or put it somewhere else in a marketing campaign. And AWS and the services are like API first, and yet the marketplace has never been API first. So I've known that this thing's been coming. They've been talking about it like in shadows for a long time. To see it finally released, and then to see how you can kind of start to leverage this for your business and extend this out, I think is really exciting.
Absolutely, and I'm also excited about that. I'll talk about it. But Nadav, what's on your mind? What did you like the most?
I think the co-sell changes, co-sell benefits. So there's two. There's one. The first one is the lightening the cap and the restrictions for ISV Accelerate partners. That means that even small early stage startups that understand what cloud go to market means and want to start adopting it can actually do it without so many limitations. Which I know a lot of early stage startups that want to do it and see it as heavy lifting, which now AWS took off. And the second thing is the fact that ISVs can communicate easily now with their counterpart AWS sellers through the partner center, for example, which will make co-sell and more specifically proactive co-sell way easier and more seamless. So I think that's two major things that I have been waiting for. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think in addition to buy with and the coastal changes that you mentioned, there was also a few things announced, and I'm very excited about those. They sent an email afterwards about your ability to list on the AWS Marketplace. All the hyperscalers want the infrastructure hosted on their own on their own cloud before they let you list. But AWS is really radicalizing this in a way that they're like, hey, you can be hosted anywhere. You can list on the AWS Marketplace. In order to do, co-sell and get the commit drawdown and the spiffs internally, all of that, that's when you have to quote unquote prove that your control plane and data plane is listed. I think this is a huge step in the right direction because it's going to change the way people look at marketplaces as not just the co-sell channel where you want to drive a deeper partnership, but this is just a channel for transaction. And when you couple that with Michael on the buy with AWS side, I think this is going to be a huge impetus for new companies, existing companies to start doing so much business on top of marketplaces as well.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Now let's talk about the in context of the three or four things that we've learned. And Michael, I'm going to go to you for this one. How do you think these changes, including the buy with AWS or other changes, really impact the ISVs in terms of executing channel partnerships on the AWS marketplace?
I think, look, all these announcements, just like all years past, like really the details are going to come out in January and beyond. And I think that's where you really start to figure out, was the headline, do the words of the story meet the headline? So I always reserve the right to, find out that it didn't sound as good or the details weren't as good as it actually sounds like in the keynote. But I think I think this does open up, and you're already seeing a lot of the distribution. You see Ingram Micro, you see a lot of the other disty channels starting to join the marketplace. I think this then starts to even layer stuff out wider and more. So I think the change that you made about just listing, it's still really about where the transaction and where you're drawing consumption. Like, make no mistake, I've been saying this for years and years. AWS cares about consumption. So if you're not built in their cloud, like it's going to be hard. It's an uphill battle for you. And the second I've coined is just that marketplace is the key to AWS's heart. And so you're just seeing patterns over the years that they just keep making these changes. But they also know that, Ruba will commonly say, 80%, 85% of the world's workloads still aren't in a public cloud. So if true, then where are they? Well, they're on-prem, they're in another cloud, they're somewhere else. And so we have to bring that to the public cloud. We want to bring that to AWS. And the way that you're going to do that is through all these traditional or legacy or whatever you want. They're through other places. So it's like the partner networks and these VARs and these SIs and these disties. They have a lot of that 85% of the workloads. And so you're now trying to figure out how to unlock and unblock all of these facilities to bring that to the public cloud. So that's where it's going to affect, and it's a lagging effect, but that's, if I had to read the tea leaves, this is what's happening. This is how it's happening. And so it's the beginning and it's a continuation of all of that stuff. So it will unlock and unblock someone who has been on the sidelines to now participate in the game.
Yeah, and Michael, what you said is just so true in so many ways, right? Like AWS has so many things to announce in that short period of 1 week, but the repercussions of it are felt for a couple months to a quarter afterwards when they keep on releasing details and stuff like that, over a period of a few months. So now going to you, um, like how do you think this will, you talked about co-sell benefits and how the newer ISV to ISV partnership is going to come in handy. How do you think this will impact the relationships and cloud marketplaces, and what practical tips can we share with folks here?
First of all, I think making the marketplace more seamless with much more benefits for both the buyer and the seller, makes the entire process more lucrative for them. It also is good for the channel to ISV relationship, but we'll talk about it maybe later. But now marketplace has become something that is way more relevant as a billing mechanism and also as a go-to-market mechanism, because it's quick, it's efficient, it's cost effective because of the commitments, and it will hopefully very soon will be fully injected with all those GenAI capabilities AWS talked about. So it's now easier to procure through the marketplace. It's easier to leverage marketplace procurements to do co-sell. That's now also easier because of the new announcements that AWS provided. And so the relationship between a purchaser and a seller, that's both and the buyer, sorry, that both of them are ISVs, now putting AWS in this triangle will make all of the the deals way more effective, way quicker, and at the end of the day, the end customer will be glad with the entire process that included co-selling with their trusted advisor, usually the seller at AWS, and with a very efficient and cost-effective procurement mechanism, which is now what marketplace has become. So there's many benefits to that.
And a follow-up to that, there was an announcement made that the sellers within AWS will be assisted by AI to pick which partner to co-sell with, right? And that caught my attention. I think it was announced, just like amongst the other 1,000 announcements that were made. But like there are limited, there are limited number of sellers at AWS and thousands of partners and growing really well. Now, given the addition of AI in the mix, how do you think it is, how does ISVs and partners think about standing out now in front of the AWS sellers?
First of all, I think it's a natural change that is good for the entire industry because it will create a better and more efficient process when it comes again to the interaction between ISVs and sellers, which we call co-sell, because they are basically, you think of an AWS account manager, for example, they are bombarded with, they have, 20 customers. Each of those customers works with 20 different ISVs or 20 different solutions. Each of them now has a cloud alliance manager or a channel co-sell manager, and they're basically bombarded. So they need to start picking out the ones that are not only more relevant to them in terms of their incentive plans, but the ones that have the better value propositions, the ones that do better approaching, and the ones that actually communicate better this co-sell mechanism. It's not just utilizing different programs, but actually creating this relationship between the ISV to the customer and together with the AWS sellers. So I think having AI help both the ISVs and the AWS sellers find each other in a certain way that creates an actual match will create better and more effective co-sell, because I've been to endless meetings with AWS sellers that did not really come to became anything only because something was missing in the communication. So I think good ISVs and the best ISVs will get more attention, which will make ISVs that have some improvement to make to actually make the improvement and start utilizing more tools like Clazar, start utilizing more cloud go-to-market initiatives and hiring more folks. And so I think I'm really excited to see how it will actually look, because I haven't seen it in live, but this is something that really will make co-selling, I think, way more efficient, which is something we need to have.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And Michael, I'm going to go to you next, and I would love to hear what you are hearing specifically in this area from your customers and partners. But just to first complete the thought, Nada, on your side, I'm actually very excited about it because I've been in the co-sell space for a while now. What I do think is because the space is so complex and lacked the tooling, it wasn't a easy space to operate on either side for the partners or for the AWS sellers. But now with the advent of technology, and of course, Clazar being at the forefront of that integration as well, what's going to happen in the next coming years is it'll get easier and easier for folks to recognize who's the partner who's leaning in very easily. Up until now, we had to do a lot of work on the AWS seller side or also on the partner side to prove that you're the one who's leaning in. But now with AI, I think it'll get started to get easier and easier. And you know what I've learned over the past few years is like it's not just the partnership ecosystem, but you have to have fantastic integrations and automation. And now with all of that data being offloaded and being utilized by the AI that AWS is implementing, I think it'll be fantastic. Michael, any thoughts on that topic? Anything spurs that from your side?
Yeah, it's actually so I hear all of this, but I've always looked at it. And again, you have to imagine like I've been at scaled ISVs, Wiz certainly is. It was the exact opposite. All of these things that made it easy was worse for me because I was a partner who did all the hard work, who hired a team, who invested in the partnership. And so a lot of the benefits that we received through the relationship and through programs was because of all the things that we put into it. So
Mm,
look, the good news is that they've made it easier. Partners like yourselves have built automation and technology so that everyone can kind of get there. The ISV Accelerator, SRR programs, the barriers have come down. That was a really hard program to get into, and I've gotten into it twice. So, like, it meant that you had to do a lot of work, you had to co-sell a lot, you had to transact in the marketplace. Like, it was very hard. So, for me, having the gates up, the walls up was always a benefit because when I earned it, it was like we did a lot of, me and the team did a lot of work to go get this way. Now, if you're just kind of giving it away, I think in many ways it makes it easy for everyone. But I will also toggle this with expectations. Many partners, ISVs, always thought, oh, well, if I list in the marketplace, magical hundreds of customers are going to find my product and they're going to buy things. And if you walked in with that expectation, you quickly learned, oh, that's not how it works at all, right? And so I think this is another one where it's like even if getting in is easier or co-selling becomes easier, it actually becomes harder. Where you used to compete with a few hundred ISVs that were all aggressive and co-selling, trying to get 5 minutes, 10 minutes with that one seller at AWS. Well, now you have 140,000 in the APN that you're all competing with that are all doing the same thing. So it actually is going to force even the top ISVs to keep innovating, move faster, automate more, maybe leverage AI. I've started to do some stuff. Like you have to keep innovating. Otherwise, now you're competing with 50,000 startup ISVs that just got into SRR like that. And well, okay, it's a good level playing field for them, but it also is really like everyone's got to kind of improve and iterate really fast on that too. So I'd say it's a double-edged sword, but there's some pluses and minuses. We'll see what's in the details of how the programs really come out and how they work. But just like the marketplace, I would say it's like you don't just list your product and magic happens. It still takes a lot of work. So even if it's easy, you still have to do the work, and that's hard to do, right? It does take commitment. It does take buy-in from your company.
and that's such a good point, Michael. Like, I think I just want to draw attention to what you said, which is up until this reinvent, there was a specific program at AWS which
Yeah.
was very hard to access. People
I
had to
wasn't
do a
allowed
lot
to
of
say it
work.
until now.
I know. It was like all confidential and stuff. But now the point that you're bringing is such a good point, Michael, because it's not just those like coveted top ISVs. It's like anyone who's gotten into ISV Accelerated, which use ISV Accelerate, which was a lower bar to get into that program, now have access and benefits to that other program, right? And I think like that is going to create this competing environment. So I'm also very curious to understand and see how the whole thing unfolds, right? Michael, a follow-up question for you,
Yeah.
and this is like the classic thing that we've all known, which is just getting into the marketplace doesn't give you automatic business. Do you think that'll change with buy with AWS?
I don't. I look. My analogies of comparing the marketplace to like a credit card, your Visa, your Amex. What I do believe is if you go way back early on to credit cards, right? Most people used cash. They didn't have credit cards. There was good and bad about this. Like a credit card in your hand didn't really matter until all the merchants started accepting Visa or MasterCard or Discover or whatever it was. And so I think of this in the same way as like, if let's just say a lot of my buys with a disti like Ingram Micro, I'm just using them as an example. If I now can see the ISVs or know that that procurement channel, I can go that route, or there's a CPPO partner that I work with, in security, 8 out of every $10 goes through a value-added reseller. So it's like, oh, I'm already working with this partner and it looks like they can. I think it's about distribution and where that thing's available. So if I had a credit card and no one accepts it, then what's the value of the credit card? But if I have this credit card and I don't have cash on me, or I got my Apple Pay and everyone accepts it, well, this is much easier. I mean, we're getting to that point, I would say, even with like the Google Pay or an Apple Pay. It's like, I forgot my wallet or my credit card. Oh, you accept Apple Pay. Boom. Now it's like, why do I even need to carry my credit card anymore? Right. So I think in a similar parallel, like this analogy, it becomes another place where it's like, oh, that's right. Now there's all these other ways and routes to leverage the marketplace as my core business. And for anyone who doesn't know, there's AWS makes commitments with their customers on spend, and there's two ways to draw down that commitment. Number one is you buy AWS services, and number two is you buy ISVs through the marketplace. So if I want to leverage that benefit that AWS has established the rules, you got two options. Either work for AWS or sell your stuff through the AWS marketplace. And so I think in that, now you're like, oh, okay, well, they set the rules to this game. I just need to understand the rules and then build our strategy to maximize the game, right? And so in this case, I think it becomes more of a distribution, like where is this payment accepted? And then it also becomes the same thing. So I think that's probably the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, and to add to that, Michael, what I do think is buy with AWS will, accelerate some of the PLG motion, because we've had a lot of customers and prospects talking to us about, hey, we've known about getting listed into marketplace doesn't give you an incremental, pipeline unless until you start doing the co-sell piece, right? But what does? And the answer from on my side was always like, you have to do all of these marketing activities, drive traffic to your listing and get people to do the PLG motion. But technically and technologically, from a API connection standpoint, it wasn't possible, but now it is.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see how these things will unfold in the
It was
future.
one of the questions in the thread, but also if you think about the use case that Databricks, which was the launch partner for one of this, has done, they've integrated it into their products. So let's say you are a PLG or you do have a product that, you buy this and then there's X features. You can imagine today in your own product, how would I facilitate, I own this tier, I need this product or feature. If you can buy with your marketplace and add this extra thing in your product, that creates a really unique, fast way to revenue that you really didn't have before. Right? If the customer's already buying your product through the marketplace and then there's an upsell capability in your product, well, the only way for them to do that is kind of come back to you and your sales team and like ask for this. And then what are you going to do? Set up a new private offer? Like there's toil in all of that. You can imagine how fast this gets if for that next feature, I just kind of click in the UI and boom, that extra 10K or whatever feature, boom, it's in your shopping cart and checked out. I just got more revenue without a human interaction, without touching it. I think what you said and the connecting it to that use case, that's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Very exciting. And Michael, I know you touched a little bit upon the VARs and channel partnership. There's a question in the audience which I think is relevant, so let's take it. It's from Miller Freeman. Do you think the future of AWS Marketplace co-sell will be stack layered, co-branded product and services for a true turnkey buyer experience? For example, an ISV vendor partnering with a VAR/MSP service offering to make the co-sell truly end-to-end. I think it's a question close to both you, Nadav, and Michael. Maybe Michael, you add
I'll
some
let
thoughts and
Nadav
then.
take a swing at that because I know he's got an opinion and I have an opinion too on this.
All right, Nadav, go
Your
ahead.
opinions usually make more sense, but I'll just try to give my 2 cents. I think the answer is yes. I don't know
Yeah.
how and when, but definitely, first of all, there's the first party sales over marketplace, which start to take place. And as long as AWS keeps working with channel partners on one hand and with the ISVs on the other hand, and all at the end of the day are linked to a specific marketplace sales, that would make sense. So you start seeing, channel partners, VARs, integrators put listings on the marketplace with the ISVs or the top ISVs that they choose. It's more independent projects, I would say, but it's definitely, I think, going to be something that's more structured together with AWS. At the end of the day, you create a private offer that's going through a channel partner, and then at the end of the day to the customer, that AWS pays the channel partner and the customer. It's something that could be way more structured, as Miller asked. And so I think it will definitely, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, be something that's more structured, at least with specific integrators that already do most of their sales and are very much linked to the cloud, do most of their sales to the cloud marketplaces.
Yeah, my answer is the same, but also you're seeing evidence of it, but it didn't really, it's hard. So AWS had a program called like Tri-Party, and you could find it, that if you could fit into it, it was an AWS plus an ISV plus an SI or a reseller, and there was a mechanism there. I think for any of us that have like integrated with EKS. There's a EKS add-ons that's also a marketplace facilitator. And so that's a good example of a very tightly coupled AWS plus an AWS service plus the marketplace experience. So that's not really the reseller, but it's just, it's a service plus your service plus marketplace, those three services. And so that's evidence. And without spilling like what the future holds and anything private from AWS, like you can take the things that are public and get a sense of other things that are to come along that same vein. So like Miller, like you said, it's gonna happen, but when and how long it takes, that's always the hard part. But you're already kind of seeing this with a lot of partners. Wiz has a bunch of great security partners. Like, yeah, they go to routes. I think of OEMs or an MSP. Like they already are going to market with an offering. Yeah, behind that offering is some of their technology, maybe Wiz's technology, maybe So it's just like, where am I transacting that and how am I facilitating that? I think the evolution of the GSIs and the SIs and some of the VARs, it'll get there. They're a little slower to adopt this kind of stuff, but I can see that happening. The unknown is like when and how long it takes, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree there as well. It's just a motion that it is going to happen. And hyperscalers are putting so much effort behind it. AWS is putting so much effort behind it. It's just a matter of time. All right, we have 2 minutes remaining, and I wanted to end this with a question for both Nadav, you and Michael, you. AWS reInvent is one of the topmost event every year. People prepare for it over the year. And like there's going to be one next year as well, we can be sure of that. If there is one thing that you both wanted on the wish list, what would that be? And I'll go to Nadav first, and then I'll go to Michael. Nadav, what do you want for next year?
The promises that were made as promises and not are not in the field, like ingesting GenAI capabilities, having a way for the AWS sellers and the ISVs, especially the sellers on the ISV part, have a way to communicate easier, and all those different new features that AWS promised. I hope to see them implemented fully by next year. Sorry, because I think improving the way ISVs and sellers work today, because marketplace has become more seamless. It's become a bit more popular. Hopefully, way more by next year. But now co-sell remains the major blocker for a lot of ISVs to break down. And so I think having a way to do that seamlessly with an AI capability along the way, with communications that improved with the person on the other side that is getting the compensation. This is something I would want to see, and I think once is out there, we'll get way more ISVs to become part of this new game.
Fantastic. Michael, you have 30 seconds. What's on your wish list?
There's so many, but there's already so many people and it's already scaled like the entire strip and it's complicated to go left and right. But, my favorite folks to work with at AWS are the ones that don't actually get to attend reInvent. And it's the individual seller that's working on a specific account that I'm co-selling with. And so, I don't think AWS is going to unlock for thousands and thousands of their sellers to attend, but it would be kind of cool, again, if they set up contests or some mechanism that more of the AWS sales teams, not just the sales leaders and the partner leaders and all these service leaders, just the individual contributors, the individual sellers. I'd love to see them there next year.
Absolutely. Well, Michael and Rao, thank you so much for joining today. I know we have content to discuss over the next 1 hour if you wanted to, but the time is limited. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate you giving us the time and helping the community learn about reInvent. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.